Done myself personally, I've done over 100 interviews interviewing people for jobs. I'm going to tell you guys at the end of it what that one thing is that always stands out and when I know this person is going to get that job. Let's go. So welcome to my office, everyone. So as you can tell, this is not my truck. This is my wife's car. I drove it today, had to get some gas and things like that. I stopped at McDonald's real quick to pick up the family something to eat, and then gonna be heading back home. I figured I'd make a video real quick for you guys. So what I want to talk about with you guys today is, it's a little different. So it's not necessarily about gig work. It is about job interviews. I know that's kind of odd that I'm going to be talking to you about this, but I do have some experience with job interviews. So what does job interviews have to do with the gig work? Why, Mark? Why are you talking about job interviews here when we're supposed to be talking about doing gig work, doing Walmart Spark, doing DoorDash, doing Uber Eats? Why are you talking about this? The reason why I'm talking about it is because for some people, the gig work isn't for them. Some, the independent contractor job, that's not for them. So I want to teach you also about job interviews, about my experiences with job interviews, what I've been through, stuff that people have asked me during the process of job interviews. So you're asking me like, Mark, how in the world can you even talk about job interviews? Why would you have any say-so in job interviews? Well, I can tell you, I've done myself personally, I've done over 100 interviews interviewing people for jobs at the job that I'm doing now, that I do now, my full-time job. And also, I've been through several interviews myself too, just going through the process, internal interviews at work and also external interviews. So I kind of have a little bit of insight when it comes to interviews. And also, with my job, I've actually had to set in interviews and watch the interviewer and the person that's being interviewed go through the process. My job is to make sure that the interview is fair and consistent with everybody across the board. So that was kind of what I do also. So I've been through hundreds of different type of interviews, all different kinds. You talk about like professional kinds, supervisor kinds, HR kinds, production worker kinds. I've been through engineer type of interviews. I've been through all different type of interviews, and I've seen one thing that stands out. And I'm going to tell you guys at the end of it what that one thing is that always stands out and when I know this person is going to get that job. So let's start out with me interviewing. Okay, so how do I interview somebody? So when I bring somebody in and I'm talking to them, of course I've got my template that I'm going to be talking to. But also as an interviewer, you want to make sure that you have that person very, very comfortable. As much comfortable as you can. Because if you don't, then you're not going to get the information you want out from them. So in the process of this, you want to make sure that the person is comfortable and also that they're ready. I've actually have interviewed people where they've been extremely nervous as soon as they walk in. So when somebody walks in and I'm doing an interview, the first thing I do is I shake their hands. I say, hey, my name is Mark. It's nice to meet you. How's your day today? How's your day going today? Sometimes it might be good. Sometimes it might be bad. Most of the time the people are smiling, but you can tell they're nervous. So what I do is when I sit down with them, I just try to get to know them a little bit. I don't even go off the template sometimes. Sometimes Sometimes I'll just talk to them as a human just to see how they're doing. How are you doing today? Do you have what's your hobbies? What are you into? Things like that. I kind of to try to break try to break that ice with them, because sometimes people are just so nervous they can't even talk. There was this one time that I was interviewing this girl, And well, this young lady, I should say. I was interviewing this young lady, and she was 18, just got out of high school. And we were sitting there talking, and she asked me, she goes, I'm very nervous. Is there any way that my mom can come in and sit in here with me during the interview? And I told her, I said, that's fine. I said, she can, but I don't want her answering for you. I want you to answer it for yourself. So I have had those type of interactions too, where people are just so nervous that they have to have somebody talk for them. I've had people where they talk really, really fast because they're so nervous. They don't know how to express themselves. So I kind of coach them along a little bit. I try to make it as comfortable as I can for the person, and I really want to help them because I want to try to get the best I can out of them during the interview process, so I know what type of skill set they have, what they bring to the company, what value they bring to the company. Not just the value that they have, the worth that they have, but also what they can bring to the company. Because all in all, you could be an employee for us, and I need to make sure that you have the right skill set. So another type of interview that I've had to do, I've actually had to do. It was probably about, I think it was 10 to 12 interviews back to back to back, where there had to be an interpreter because the people didn't speak English, which it made it kind of hard for my kind of work not to be able to speak English, just because of the fact that that most of everything is written in English. But when I got to know them, I was very impressed when they would, all of them, like every one of them, when they would speak, they would explain, they were immigrants, and they explained what they did at their previous jobs. And I'd go in depth, as far as questions wise, because, you can ask your basic questions, but also you can go in depth and ask other questions too, like as far as the skill set, how depth of skill set they have. I was very impressed by them. So just because somebody can't speak English, it doesn't mean that they don't have the skill set to be a worth for your company. So just remember that too, as an interviewer. So as somebody who's getting interviewed, this is kind of where I want to help people. I always get those questions like, Mark, what's the best way to go into an interview? How can I go into an interview and know that I could get this job? I can tell you, I've seen, like I said, hundreds of different type of interviews, and I've experienced, I don't know, probably like 30 interviews myself. And I've bombed interviews so bad. I think everybody has bombed an interview just because of the fact that you don't have the confidence, or you're not really sure about yourself, or you don't know about your skills, if your skills are even worth it for this job, things like that. One of the best things that you can do as far as when you get in there and you get into the interview is that work on the outside. So before you get in that interview, make sure you learn about the company. Try to research the company. Try to research what they do, how they do it. Okay, so whatever they use, if they use robots, machines, computers, logistics, whatever type of process that you're going to be going through, make sure that you do research on that particular field and that company that you're trying to go into. If you're trying to go in as a supervisor, make sure that you learn as much as you can about the skill sets that you need as a supervisor, or management, or whatever. I've sat in interviews with managers, and I've actually interviewed managers, for certain type of jobs, and I'm just like, this guy's pretty good, but I'm not for sure if he understands what we do. So make sure that you research the company. Another thing that you need to do before you go in there, just sit back and just stay calm. I know it's going to be hard. I know once you're sitting back and you're anticipating this job, you're anticipating this interview, you're afraid you're going to bomb it. You're not going to bomb it. All you have to do is practice, find somebody to practice with an interview. Is always the basic questions. It's always like, why do you want this job? What type of value do you bring to this job? Tell me some of your hobbies outside of work. Basic questions. And once you get those type of questions down, and you get the answers down to those questions, it's going to be okay. Don't ever ask, and I know it's going to be hard at first, but when you're going through a job interview, don't ask about benefits at first. Try to go through a little bit more time with them, because you'll have other interviews after your first one. Typically, you have 2 to 3 different type of interviews. You'll have the entry interview, which is what I kind of do, and then you'll have the interview with HR or manager or something like that, and then you have an interview usually with the big dogs, the ones that if they're really interested in you. Sometimes there's a test. Be prepared for that. Sometimes there might be a test for you to take. So just get ready for that. I have a lot of people that ask me all the time. They're like, Mark, how do I get a job? Like, how do I get this? What do I do when I get in there? Make sure your resume is up to date. Update your resume. That's key too. Because that interviewer is going to look at your resume. Absolutely. If they're interested in you, they will ask. And they will look, and then there's times I'll scroll down their resume, their application, and as they're sitting there, and I'll read it, and I'll ask them, like, well, what about this? What about this work history? What happened here? Like, why is there such a gap? So if you have a gap in your work history, make sure you have an answer for that. Always make sure you have an answer for your work gap. Even if it is to stay home with your kids, that's fine. Or, hey, I needed to take a little time off for myself, so I decided to do that. That's fine. Just always be honest and always be genuine and authentic when you're in there. Because I'm telling you, an interviewer can tell if you're lying. I can 100% tell when somebody's lying to me. Because what I'll do is, and a lot of people won't tell you this, what I'll do is I'll pick at that. So let's say I ask you, hey, do you have supervisor skills? And you say, yeah, I have a supervisor skill. I was a supervisor for 8 years, took 2 years off. Okay, so what kind of supervisor was you? Well, let's say I was a production supervisor and I made sure production got out, blah, blah. What happened if production didn't get out that certain day? What would you do? They would tell me, well, I would, discipline the person, or I would coach the person. Okay, so what was the step after coaching? What would you do after that? I always have a follow-up question if I think that you're lying to me. And most good interviewers can pick up on your lies. Just remember that. Another note is, if they're writing, that means they're interested in you. They're interested, or they want to question more about what you're saying. So make sure that you take your time when you see they're writing stuff. Don't talk too fast. Talk slow. If you see they're writing, it's okay to pause and wait till they're done. It's okay to do that. Because I can tell you, when I'm writing, sometimes there's a lot of times that I don't get everything that I need to get. So when I go to review it with the manager later on, I might not get all the information because the person is talking so fast. So make sure that you slow down a little bit on your talking, especially if it's something important that you're talking about. Everything is important during the interview. Your dress is important, your attitude. I actually had somebody at one point, and it's kind of getting a little lengthy, so I'm gonna cut it off pretty soon. I actually had somebody at one point. I was interviewing the person. They got on the phone while I was interviewing them. They literally started texting and I had several people do that to me, but I had one, and I asked them. I said, are you interested in this job? And they looked at me and they're like, yeah. And I said, well, you're not making it look like you are by being on the phone. by texting. So they put their phone down and they said, we're sorry. But that's a sign to me that in the future, when you get into your role, if I hire you and you get into your role, that you'll want to get on your phone and you'll want to, whatever you're doing, texting, playing games, or whatever you're doing, you're going to want to do that. Because I'm telling you, there's a lot of times I'll walk around and I'll see people on their phones and I'm just like, what in the world? This new generation of people, they think that they have to be in constant contact with everything that's going on. And your company is paying you money to be there for them to produce. Just remember that. So as an interviewer and also as somebody who's being interviewed, these are the key roles. And in the background, when the company looks at the paperwork that the interviewer filled out, they're looking at all these little key notes. They're looking at all these keywords on whether or not this person's a good benefit. So like I said at the beginning, what is the number one thing that you need during an interview? Do you know what the number one thing is? Is to have confidence. It's what it comes down to. You walk in there with confidence, not arrogance, confidence that, number one, you know this job. Number two, you know you're going to be an excellent employee. If they hire you, you're going to be one of the best employees that they have. And number three, that you'll be grateful. Not to the point to where you're groveling over them and you're just like, oh, thank you so much for this job. No, but you're grateful that you have a job so you can pay your bills. But that's why I wanted to bring this, because not everybody is cut out to do the gig work full time. I don't do the gig work full time. I couldn't be an independent contractor. So this is a little bit of tips and hints, little tricks that I've learned along the way with my experiences of doing job interviews and seeing job interviews and setting in job interviews and doing them directly to people, like, asking questions. So just make sure that you get out there, you find you a job that you're happy with. I always tell my kids, always be happy with your job. If you're not happy with your job, try to find something else, especially if you're young. All right. So everybody have a good day and let's go. Let's go.